and he's got his name back in the race as well.
Yeah, there's a squad of players that were traveling around a lot. Andrew Tenjum, Kent Ketter, Eric Rill comes to mind. Sort of that Ohio area that was traveling a lot and now less so, but are still in the mix for the Players' Championship.
Game number 1 of round 2 here in Minneapolis underway. Tenjum is going to sacrifice a windswept teeth. He will be getting himself a forest there, as Shane Duffy did start off with a Sandsteps Citadel. Of course, the Abzan Tri-Land. So Tenjum with a forest. Again, he is on green-red monsters, so the windswept teeth will just get a forest out of his deck.
What's really nice about the green-red monsters list is the 4 copies of Elvish Mystic. They're very reliable here. They just play with a lot of untapped green mana on turn 1. That's a concession that decks like Abzan midrange have to do. You often see 2 Elvish Mystics in those lists, and part of that is just there's a lot of lands that come into play tapped. There's a lot of black-white dual lands. You can't necessarily cast an Elvish Mystic on the first turn, but the green-red monsters deck can do it very reliably.
Yeah, Ari Lax actually had 2 copies of Elvish Mystic in his Pro Tour winning deck list. Taking a look at Shane's here, he actually has 0 copies of Elvish Mystic in his deck list, so has decided to go without those this weekend, which does make sense because it is very difficult to cast on turn 1.
I think the lands that you want to play inform a lot about whether or not you want to be playing with Elvish Mystic.
Another Citadel here for Duffy before passing the turn back, so he's off to a slow start, but that's what this deck does. It doesn't really get started until turn 3.
Best thing you can do is maybe cast a removal spell, maybe play a blocker, get started on turn 3. Most of the time, of course, are Krufix.
Temple of Abandon here for Tenjum. He's going to put the top card to the bottom. He's got 2 mana, so it looks like maybe time for some more ramping. It is a Rattleclaw Mystic, and back to Duffy we are going to go. So Duffy will draw a card. You see he does have a Johnny Mentor of Heroes in his hand. There is the 3rd land. It's a copy of Windswept Heath. So colors are online here for Shane, along with the 3rd mana. And we'll see what he does have to do on his 3rd turn. Again, you did mention Courser of Krufix, also a card like Hero's Downfall or Abzan Charm work their way into things now.
Shane is really gunning for the mirror match this weekend. You know, he has the Ajani in his hand. You see he has a main deck Liliana, a main deck Read the Bones, a main deck End Hostilities. He is trying to fight similar decks.
You do pay some costs by trying to do that. Again, the main deck and Hostilities and Read the Bones. I imagine that some matchups get a little bit worse, maybe like your Mono Reds or your Jeskai of the world, but your mid-range matchup gets a little bit better, and if you think that a lot of people are going to be playing this deck, as it is quite popular and as we know it's very good, it's probably the place to be.
Definitely giving up some equity against the beatdown decks, and the loss of Elvish Mystic harms those matchups as well, most likely, but if you are anticipating playing a lot of mirror matches, this does not seem like a bad place to be.
Shane just passes with 3 mana up, so this kind of smells like a Hero's Downfall. Of course, it could be an Abzan Charm as well, so he's got some options here as Tenjum is on his 3rd turn of the game. If he does have a land, he'll have access to 5 mana on turn number 3. Looks like Tenjum is going to go reaching for that Rattleclaw Mystic. We'll find out if it's for mana or attacking instead. Looks like it will be an attack here, so Duffy's going to go down to 17. Tenjum will play a land. Follow up here with a copy of Ash Cloud Phoenix. We saw a lot of this in the early rounds last week.
And I think even if Tenjum had something like Stormbreath Dragon in hand right there, he's informed enough about Abzan midrange that he's not going to just fire it into a potential Hero's Downfall. This turn is much better in terms of trying to fight removal spells, because there's not really anything for Shane to do here with a random spot removal spell.
Abzan Charm will play Sign in Blood mode. Pay 2 life, draw 2 cards. To the 4th turn here for Duffy. See, Duffy's got some powerful cards in hand. Again, he's got a Liliana, along with an Ajani Mentor of Heroes. You see the Courser of Krufix in his hand as well. So he's definitely got some powerful cards in the grip, but he's got some work to do.
It's tough to fight green-red monsters with Planeswalkers because there's so much flying and so much haste, so much direct damage. The deck's very good at fighting Planeswalkers.
Looks like we're going to have a Courser of Krufix this turn. Yes, we will. So it's time to take a look at the top card of the deck. Copy of Sylvan Carry added. Not on land. The question now is, does Shane actually have a land in his hand? The answer is no. So back to Tenjum we go. Tenjum will untap those lands and those mana accelerants, and we'll draw a card. You see a copy of Heir of the Wilds in his hand. There's also a Sarkhan, the Dragon Speaker, and I think that's where we're going, which is to the skies.
And this is lethal next turn.
This is one of the best ways to fight against this deck, which is just go to the air, because Courser and Carry added and Siege Rider do such a great job of locking down the ground.
Flyers and haste. They commit a lot of mana on their own turn, so haste is good. And they're really good at blocking the ground, but not so much the air, so flyers are exceptional as well.
Sorin Solemn Visitor is the top card here for Duffy. That is not a land. He's at 7, as you did mention. It's already lethal next turn. And you can kind of see the vulnerability to Crater's Claws. that Abzan midrange does have as well, because if, for whatever reason, Shane was able to stabilize in this situation, well, a top deck Fireball was really all that it takes to get the job done here. Hero's Downfall going to take care of the Sarkhan.
Abzan can gain life, but it's usually in very small packets. It's not the type of, the type of life gain that's going to overwhelm something like Crater's Claws. You're going to get some points from your Siege Rhino, some points from your Coursers, but you don't Sphinx's Revelation for 8 and push yourself out of range. So Crater's Claw is very threatening for Abzan.
You see an attack there for 4 from the Phoenix, and a lightning strike there from Tenjum. Is going to wrap up game number 1. Andrew Tenjum does win game number 1 here over Shane Duffy. Green-red monsters up again here over Abzan midrange as we turn our attention to the sideboard. For Duffy, he's got 3 copies of Bile Blight, 3 Drought and Sorrows, 2 Murderous Cut, an additional Utter End, a Hero's Downfall, 2 Nissa World Waker, and a Johnny Mentor of Heroes, and then 2 copies of Dune Blast. So Shane is going to be the control deck in this matchup, I feel like, always. Dune Blast seems like a pretty good option, though it is an expensive one.
I don't mind the Doom Blast when you're supplementing it with additional spot removal, and you get to bring in 2 copies of Murderous Cut, and Utter End, and a Hero's Downfall. I think that the problem is that so many of Andrew's threats are tough to answer with things like Doom Blast, because they either have resistance or they're just too fast, like there's just too much haste in the matchup. But I think that alongside these removal spells, it's worth bringing in.
What do we see on Tenjum's side?
2 Hornet Queen, 2 Destructive Revelry, 2 copies of Nissa Worldwaker, 2 Xenagos the Reveler, 3 Magma Spray, 3 Nylea's Disciple, and 1 Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. I like bringing in the Nissas and the Xenagoses quite a bit. Shane's deck, Planeswalkers are going to be good against Abzan most of the time. I think Xenagos especially has the potential to be good. And I think the Nykthos could come in as well, because it's likely to be a pretty dragged out game where Crater's Claws is a tool for Andrew. So it's low cost to bring in, and I think could potentially do some work.
Take a look now at our States and Regionals program for 2015. Pretty exciting stuff here. Pro Tour weekends. We don't often run Open Series events. Now we're not going to do it anymore because we have these fantastic events.
They've been so well received, and we just had Autumn States pretty recently that we're going to be bringing out 4 of these programs next year. Again, every Pro Tour weekend. You can see we already have the dates posted. Regional Championships, February 7th, 8th, and in the summer and August, and Spring and Autumn State Championships, April 11, 12, and October 17, 18. So if you're not qualified for the Pro Tours and you're looking to play for Open Series points, play mats, and all sorts of prizes, make sure to be hitting these up.
Speaking of play mats, we do have an awesome one here for regionals. It is all swirls all the time. You jam all 4 together, and you've got yourself a beautiful play mat.
As you can tell, I'm seeing this for the first time myself.
Got to get the honest reaction out of you. Big fan of this. Again, free exclusive playmat to the first 200 players
who sign up for regionals.
Cheeks. Yeah, they're everywhere. You can't stop them. Again, Winter Regional Championships, February 7th and 8th. Free exclusive playmat to the first 200 players that do sign up at regionals. StarCityGames.com/regionals for more information.
Make sure to check this out, because these playmats are going to be limited run and very popular.
I guess we'll have to get one for you.
Yeah.
I know a guy. I can just take care of him. I know a guy.
Yeah.
You might also know the same guy. But I know a guy.
Yeah.
I can get it taken care of for you. It's a pretty sweet plan.
Taking advantage of your inside SCG contacts with me.
Inside information.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
I may know the same people.
You might. But then again, you may not.
You're
not sure.
Yeah.
You're not sure who
Better
we know.
be safe than sorry.
Game number 2 here between Tenjum and Duff will be underway shortly. Expect to see a lot of Abzan mid-range this weekend. But, one deck that we actually didn't talk very much about leading into the show was Green-Red Monsters. It's kind of understated that this is the deck that did win the Grand Prix last weekend in Los Angeles.
I think this threat base is exceptional for trying to fight Abzan mid-range. I don't know if this is the perfect 60, but the threat base is perfect. Ashcloud, Phoenix, Stormbreath Jargon, and Sargon are cards I would want to be casting right now.
Yeah, if you're going against Siege Rhino, you got to go above it.
Yep.
And I think this is the best way to go about doing it. This Green Red Monsters deck can ramp those threats out very, very quickly with Elvis Mystic and Rattleclaw Mystic, and then you just go above them, and hopefully it's good enough.
And often it is. And we saw that game. Shane did stall on lands a little bit, but 1-for-1 spot removal spells were not going to keep his head above water there. And the stuff he could tap out for on his own main phase, assuming that he even drew the lands, weren't going to be that helpful there. The Planeswalkers would have just died. Siege Rhino would have been not effective against Andrew's Air Force. So it would have been challenging for Shane, I think, to do very much that game, even if he was drawing lands.
I'm excited for game number 2. I do think this is a favorable matchup here for Tenjum, though.
It looks really solid.
And it's not too surprising that I think now players are starting to you know, after the deck wins the Pro Tour, right, everyone wants to play the deck that won the Pro Tour the weekend after, or at least maybe some modification of their own take on the deck. Ari did a fantastic job, along with Team TCG Player, of getting the job done with their Abzan mid-range deck. The week after, Grand Prix LA, still puts up a good weekend. Same thing can be said at the Open Series in Worcester. We saw Boswell make the top 4, and we had 3 different Abzan decks within the top 8 last week when we were in Worcester. But now I think players have had the time to play against the deck and adapt to it and try to figure out the best ways to go about beating it. And that's what you kind of see here with the Green Red Monsters deck.
It's challenging because if you look at the Abzan deck, there's no obvious weaknesses to it. There's nothing you can point to and say, oh, this deck can't really handle X. But there are particular cards that it really struggles with. I think Stormbreath Dragon is near the top of the list, and Ash Cloud Phoenix and Sarkhan are also very high up there.
It's time for game number 2 here between Tenjum and Duffy. Duffy will be on the play as he did lose game number 1. We'll see if he can find a 7-card hand that he's interested in. You see there's an Abzan Charm over there, among other options. Elspeth as well. He says he will keep it. Tenjum's good to go, too. Game number 2 underway here. A little temple action. Take a look at the top card. That one's going to go to the bottom there for Duffy, and over to Tenjum we do go. Tenjum will draw a card. It's a forest, it's an Elvish Mystic, and this might be the best Elvish Mystic deck in the format.
I think so. It has very powerful things to ramp into, and it has the most reliable acceleration.
We make Rock going to go to the bottom of the deck off of that Temple of Silence. So Duffy has his colors online, Temple of Malady and Temple of Silence in play. Tenjum going to draw a card. It's a forest.
And it looks like Shane has gone to his Drown in Sorrows. I believe there are 2 in hand right now.
Yeah, he does have 3 of those in the sideboard. A little bit surprised, though it does look like that Tenjum's mana accelerants do die to the Drown in Sorrow, so this could be an interesting wrinkle in the matchup. One thing that's not going to die to Drown in Sorrow might be this Courser he's casting, though, but yep, and there that is. So here's the top card. It's a copy of Stormbreath Dragon, and back to Duffy we're going to go, though it does look like Tenjum is having a bit of color issues at this game.
Well, he has a Wooded Foothills in hand. Now, the Green-Red Monsters deck does need to find double red, so he still may have colored mana issues, but he wants to keep that Wooded Foothills for as long as possible for maximum synergy with his Courser.
Looks like Duffy with no 3rd land. He just has to pass the turn back. Did have 2 Scry lands, scryed both of his cards to the bottom, but it was of no help. Tenjum draws that copy of Stormbreath Dragon. You see the forest on top of his deck. Tenjum's going to put that into play. He's going to gain life and go up to 21. Going to get his value off of the Courser. Still only 1 red mana in his hand with the Wooded Foothill, so he's got to work his way towards another red mana, as there you do see Elvish Mystic on top of the deck.
I think at this stage it's shaping up to be a slow enough game that Andrew's willing to give up red mana this turn to just get an extra card out of his Courser.
And there's a Pelucranos for Tenjum as well. So a very good start here as Duffy will draw a card. Looked like it was a copy of a Siege Rhino. That's not a land. Powerful card, don't get me wrong. Does not look to be a land, though, as Duffy does have to decide what to discard now. He'll go with Drown in Sorrow and pass the turn back over to Tenjum. And this could be a quick one here for Tenjum, as he does draw a copy of Elvish Mystic. Top card here is a Mountain.
Still just a boatload of cards in Andrew's hand, and Shane's deck really can only trade 1 for 1 at best in this spot until he gets to 5 mana for end hostility, so Andrew is free to do whatever he wants.
See, Tenjum is going to gain a life there. Top card of his deck is a Mountain as well. Here is an attack for 5, 6, 7. Let's make it 8 all day. Duffy going to go down to 10. The follow-up here for Tenjum looks to be another mana accelerant there in Elvish Mystic, and he'll just pass the turn back. Duffy's going to draw. This is 2 mana. I believe this might be a carry added. It will. But that is pretty late to the party, especially when Tenjum does have Mountain on top of his deck. And he also has Stormbreath Dragon.
And it looks like there might have been some modifications to Shane's deck at the last minute here to go from 25 to 24 lands.
Ah, we're skimping.
I'm looking here. So he's on 24 lands plus no Elvish Mystics. Little light on mana for this sort of deck.
Top card there is Sarkhan. There is a Mountain. Tenjum going to play a Stormbreath Dragon that we all know about from the Courser. Everybody's going to come in. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points of damage are going to get through. See, Pelucranos will be blocked by the Caryatid. So Caryatid's going to get flattened here. And Duffy will get to draw 1 more card, but there is not a card that exists to get him out of this situation. Wingmate Rock comes off the top, and that's going to do it. Andrew Tenjum's going to win this match over Shane Duffy. 2 games to 0. Green and Monsters downs Abzan mid-range, and what is a pretty positive matchup for Green-Red in the first place.
I think so, too. And Shane's deck is a little light on mana, given what he's trying to do here. His deck's more expensive than Ari's deck, for example. There's more 5-mana spells in it. On top of that, he's on only 7 temples, which still is a little bit light if you're going down to 24 lands and cutting the Elvish Mystics.
Yeah, I think one place that you can't skimp on this deck is mana. You know, this is a very, very mana-hungry deck. Heck, he's got 2 Dune Blasts on the sideboard, for example. Also, when you start to slice down on mana, your Courser gets a little bit worse because the ability to actually reveal a land to that, you've lessened the chances of that because you have less lands in your deck.
Yeah, and, you know, again, in a comparative sense, he is playing much more of a mid-range game, trying to beat other mid-range decks. His build's even more extreme than Ari's in that respect. So cutting on lands makes a little bit of sense insofar as you expect the game to go on for a long time. You just want to have the most stuff. But in a matchup like this, where he has his land drops on time to be able to do anything, it costs him big time.
Well, congratulations to Andrew Tenjum, number 14 on our Open Series leaderboard. He's